Greetings, everyone. My name is Thami Mbongo. Welcome to the State of the Arts with Thami Mbongo. All in 4 months, 3 premieres, Global Playground with Sue Buckmaster, Manchester International Festival, Broken Chord with Tutuka Sidisi, Spain, Recraze, Retract with Jefferson Chabalala, Moileti Mabe, J Flavor, Tepsa Tipejo, and Efomolo, Edinburgh International Festival. 16 flights, 46 antigen tests, 18 vaccine checks in 2 countries, UK and France, 3 new cities discovered, Madrid, Weimar, and Ebena, new friends, new business deals, new commissions. I don't take any of this for granted. I feel incredibly blessed to be working and being. Last night, a raptured applause and countless echoes with Lonely Together was testament to why I still do this 3 decades later. Big thank you to everyone who made it possible. I'm forever grateful. Now I'm heading home to give my mom a biggest hug for her birthday tomorrow, and hopefully to cheer her up with all sweet and more things she so deserves. Our guest today is Gregory Vuyani Maqoma, an outstanding performer, teacher, and creator of a vibrant, elegant form of dance. Gregory Maqoma is considered to be one of the most talented artists of the new generation in South Africa. Gregory Vuyani Maqoma was born in Soweto in 1973 and became interested in dance in the late 1980s as a means to escape the political tension growing in his place of birth. He started his formal dance training in 1990 at Moving Into Dance, where in 2002, he became the Associate Artistic Director. Maqoma has established himself as an international renowned dancer, choreographer, teacher, director, scriptwriter, and he founded Vuyani Dance Theatre, VDT, in 1999, where he was undertaking a scholarship at the Performing Arts Research and Training School, parts in Belgium, under the direction of Anne Teresa De Keersmaeker. Maqoma is respected for his collaboration with artists of his generation since 2000. He has collaborated with choreographers, including Khan, Vincent Manso, Forsten Linge, Kula, Data Masiti Lapi, on him accolades and international acclaim. They include F&B Vita Choreographer of the Year in 1999, 2001, and 2002 for Rhythm 1, 2, 3, Rhythm Blues, and Southern Comfort, respectively. He received the Standard Bank Young Artist Award for Dance in 2002. Maqoma was the finalist in the Diana Chrysler Choreography Award in 2002 and in the Rolex Mentorship Program in 2003. He is the recipient of the 2012 Tanki Award for Leadership in Dance, which is presented annually to South Africans who has elevated the dance and visibility of dance in South Africa. In 2017, the French government awarded Maqoma the honorific Chevalier de Welcome, Greg Maqoma, to the show. How are you?
Hey, Thami, thank you. I was just chuckling in the pronunciation of those words.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm great. I'm grateful to be home. You know, I'm well spirited. I couldn't even be more grateful to be home when Stand Foundation is celebrating 1 year. So we're 1 year today as Stand Foundation, and I've been the chairperson of Stand from the onset. So Yeah, big ups. We're about to make a big celebration at 6 o'clock immediately after this interview.
Yeah, we will talk more about STEM and the work that you do. In the opening, I read your Facebook post. You understand that the past 4 months has been really hectic for you. Can you please share with us what you have been up to and how are you feeling about the work that you have achieved?
Sure. I mean, firstly, I'm hugely grateful to be having a 4 months tour in these times of COVID-19, when so many of artists, my peers, are sitting without any work. And for me to be able to travel, in Europe and to premiere three works in different cities and different theaters, that I think is incredible. I think I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do that. So my journey started actually in France, where I was commissioned to create a new piece for Ballet de Lyon, of which is going to premiere in December. So I will be back and forth between Lyon and South Africa. And then I went to Manchester International Festival, where I worked with Sue Buckmaster on the new creation, a new commission, which is my first piece, which is literally made for children. And I couldn't be more chuffed to be making a piece for young people. So yeah, that went well, and it was commissioned by Manchester International. We premiered. It was a live performance, plus we did as well the film on it. And then I went to Edinburgh Festival to premiere Retrace Retract, which is a work that I worked on with a cream de la cream of South African artists who are making waves. They might not be recognized even in our own country, but now I can tell you they are known, particularly in Edinburgh Festival, because their voice was heard, their movement was felt, the joy of the kind of work they're making was really appreciated in that city. Yeah, Jefferson Shabalala, a poet. I've been wanting to work with him. We've just been waiting for a special project, and this came, and I couldn't have been more glad to collaborate with him on this project. Yeah, and then I'm back home, and 2 days later, 2 days after my arrival, I was standing at Lutili House with Mom Sbongile Mngoma and with placards and asking, for the president to please, can you just listen to our pleas? Can you just understand where we are as artists, that we are citizens of this country, we are contributors of the GDP, we pay taxes, we go out of the country, we make money there, which we bring back and we invest in the country. So please hear us when we say we do need you to reconsider the blanket closure of theaters, that it cannot be treated as a blanket, and we need systems that will allow there's some kind of an intervention to this, and also, to say very boldly, get rid of Minister Natim Tetwa. Get rid of him.
Mm.
He has done a disservice to this sector, and we need to stand tall and very boldly as an artistic community to say that we do not want him. We do not recognize him as a Minister of Arts and Culture, because he never recognized us as a sector that is thriving, as a sector that can uh, really create something that is magnificent, that is beautiful, as a sector that employs people, 7% of the working force in this country. So yes, we are a workforce, and that we want the president to recognize. So I went there and I said, I'm not gonna sit out and look. I'm going to join my brothers and sisters as we raise our placards and say, aluta continua, the fight has to continue.
Mm. Sabulela Kakhulu, that you came to the show. 46 antigen tests. 18 kids tests. two Pfizer vaccine just in a lot, and you are talking about opening up the industry, you understand? And I'm interested to know more, Uguti, how other countries are doing, because theater is alive and blooming in other countries under this COVID-19. So how are they doing that side, and how do you feel we can in South Africa open theaters safely?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a consolidated effort between, the private sector, the citizens, the artist community, the government. That consolidation, the Minister of Health, has resulted in theaters being recognized as one of the safest spaces in those countries. So we played to 70% capacity. Some theaters were on 50%, depending on the size of the theater that you were in. Um, so theaters were close to full. I mean, our shows were sold out on that 70% capacity. And protocols are observed. People are watching the shows with masks on. You go to a restaurant in this country, people sitting in the restaurants, they don't have masks on. And those restaurants are almost functioning at 100% capacity. While, theaters who are actually the safest spaces, who can observe these protocols much more efficiently, are not being allowed to function in the way that they should be. So I think there's evidence in other countries that states that we can open theaters safely. We can be in a position where we can allow audiences to come into those spaces safely. But in addition to that, is that the consolidation of all the sectors involved, or all, even including, health sector, is to say, here we are, why don't we use theaters as a safest model? Bring in also your vaccination points within the doorsteps of a theater. If people are coming in, they're not being vaccinated, they can get an antigen test. It takes 15 minutes to get a result from an antigen test. And then people can be allowed in. So that consolidation allowed people to feel safe, number one, and then secondly, to get into the theaters. So theaters were not just shut, and artists were able to earn a living.
It's clear, Kuti, our South African government need to really learn. You understand that? Because it really does not make sense that you are having a theater that seats about 1,000 people, and then you only allow 50. But when you go to taxis, trains, it's like it's full capacity. It really does not make sense. And then another thing that you spoke about on that post, you spoke about new friends, new business deals, and new commissions. And you've been in the industry for all 3 decades, you understand? And some people might be asking, you understand, what is it that Gregory is doing, you understand, to sustain Ikamalapo in the industry? And if you look at your background, where you started into moving dance and you became the associate director, and you are still there. What is the secret? What keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing that I always say, even to my peers and colleagues, is that we need to collaborate more. We need to be talking more as different sectors. I'm able to hold a conversation with a composer, with a visual artist, a filmmaker. So those conversations often lead to this kind of collaborations where, I'm able to make a film that I can invite a filmmaker, I can invite a music composer to come on board. But I think also important is that I've always, wherever I go, I make sure that there is always an extended effort for me to be in touch with the local community, to be in touch with the people who are working in those communities, because I think it's critical and important for us to not just go into a city, perform and go, but I want to make sure that there is something that is far more significant and profound in the connection that I make with people that are living in those cities. And those connections, they often lead to those kind of collaborations where I get invited more and more into those cities to collaborate, to perform, to make work, to create on new companies. So yeah, that has really been my motto to kind of like open up to other forms of art, um, celebrate other forms of art, and allow other forms of art to inspire the new vision, the new idea. So it's never a, a lonely kind of journey that I'm taking. I'm always taking others with me, and collaboration really is at the core of my work. I love collaborating. I love working with people who don't have the skill that I have, because they can only enhance the work. They can only really bring their energy and something that is far more beautiful than I would do if I was on this journey on my own. I hope I didn't lose you there, Thami.
And when we are talking about our collaboration, yeah, you understand that, and it's been amazing. So I'm more interested in what is it that you look at. You understand that when you want to collaborate with people, is it the performers or artists that you really wish to work with? How do you decide in terms of
Sure. I
who do
mean,
you collaborate with?
sometimes, I don't decide, people decide. And I've had those kind of incidents where, someone will walk into my studio or give me a phone call and share their material with me. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's really something and then down the line, I will put it in a shelf. And then down the line, a project comes. And because somebody has already knocked on my door who possesses a skill that could be useful for that project, then I pick up the call and say, hey, buddy, remember we had this conversation. Remember you walked into the studio. I think I do have a project that can really make us work together. And that's how it works normally. And sometimes it's really because, somebody possesses something that is so unique and so special that I feel that I want to learn from that person. I want to understand their craft. So it is my curiosity sometimes that pushes me to want to work with somebody who I have not worked with before. And at times it's about continuity. Like most of my composers that I've worked with, there's always been that continuity. We start with this project and I feel, oh, actually, this was a beginning. We need to find the middle point. And then I will create in the next project with them where we find the middle point. And from the middle point, we need to find what is the high point that we can find. And it leads us to the next project. So there's sometimes that kind of like continuity that I look for.
Funding, a lot of people are always complaining about funding. I know, like artists like yourself, you look beyond just South African government and entities for funding. You understand? How did you manage to sustain, to make sure that you are able to create the work that you do in South Africa and abroad? And any other advice to other people, especially when it comes to funding? Because a lot of artists say, I want to do so much, but there is no funding. There's no funding. How do you, for 3 decades, you've been all over the world, how are you doing it?
Yeah, I talk a lot about my projects. The project could be in the next 5 years, but I'll put up a loudspeaker, and I'll send out feelers to everyone that I know, the theaters that I've been to, festivals that I've been to. Everybody will know that Gregory is making a work for 2025. And that's exactly what is happening now. I'm already on that role that I'm making a work, I'm a new creation for 2025, and I'm sending feelers out there. So if you are listening, I am making a work for 2025, and I'm looking for collaborators. I'm looking for investors. I'm looking for producers. I'm looking for theaters to come on board. So it's about it. It's always been a vocal about my ambitions, my dreams. Um, yeah, how I see the future. I communicate. It takes, I mean, to make an example, the last piece that we just premiered, Broken Chord, it's a piece that I started talking about 4 years ago. And I sent an email to few producers. They all responded positively towards it. So I didn't have to go and apply for funding for that for that production. It took one email that went into 6 producers and theaters who came on board, and each one of them contributed equal. They all contributed equal amount of money to make up what I needed for that project to happen. So it was not for me filling in an application that was going to the National Arts Council or filling in an application that was going to the lottery or any other institutions that funds the arts. It was talking to the very people who are interested in booking work that was to be presented in different theaters. And by the way, this was also sent to various theaters in our country. But as we know, there has not been a response in that in coming from our country. So all my co-producers for this particular work are all international players in the USA and Europe. And yeah, and that's something that I feel very strongly that we still have to find ways in which we could create flexibility, we could create creative ways in which productions can be funded. Theaters can come together. Like for instance, we've got state-funded theaters in the country. Why can't they come together to co-produce a production that can tour the country, can go into all these different places? That's how you sustain the work. Because at the moment, the system is that the National Arts Council funds the project, but you still have to find a way in which that project goes into those theaters. So there's something is not connecting there. And if that work is performed once, then it dies a horrible death. You know what I mean? So how do we enlarge and ensure that investment is really, it has a ripple effect, that it does not really about just performing, because to sustain the art, to sustain the artist is by them allowing them to perform continuously. And by allowing artists to perform continuously, then you're sustaining their livelihood, you're sustaining the sector.
And when you speak about especially these state-funded theaters and blah blah in South Africa, let's talk about programming when it comes to dancing in this theater. Some people believe which most of the artistic directors are more into understanding theater and not into dance, and hence you've got like few dance seasons that you watch. You only see dance when it's like dance festival, as if throughout the country, you understand that there are no dancers. What do you feel we are missing, especially in South Africa, when it comes to dance programming?
Yeah, I think the word itself, theater, is kind of like misleading in terms of how the artistic directors are selected for those, particularly the state-funded theaters. Because if you look at those state-funded theaters, I mean, the artistic directors, one, most of them, they are male, and then secondly, they are theater practitioners. So there is no a dance programmer in those theaters, someone who looks after dance, who will say, I have a calendar for dance for this year in this theater. If you do have theater in those dances, it does not equal to the amount of theater productions that are being produced in those theaters. And that for me is, again, the disengagement with the real reality of what is going on in our country. At this moment in time, I can tell you, Thami, that dance, it is the most sought after from this country abroad. If you look, I can count now in terms of people who are abroad. Mamela Nyamza now, she is abroad. I just came back. Dada Masilo just came back. You know what I mean? So there's a market for dance. We have not explored that market in this country. And it's solely because theaters themselves have not come up with a solid, a decisive manner in which they can program dance in their theaters. It is almost feels like it's a last thought to say, okay, let's program dance as well.
And it's really sad. You mentioning about that, about Mamela. These are the artists like yourselves and many others who are recognized outside your own country. You understand? And you will think artists like that, you understand, will be in the forefront of their programming and stuff. And it's really sad. You understand? As you mentioned earlier on when we were talking about our minister, Natim Tetra, Minister of Condolences and Congratulations, and also with our president. A lot of people have been writing open letters to our president, our minister, and they seem not interested. What do you think needs to be done?
I think, and I speak maybe from a position of privilege because, I'm able to tour and make work and travel overseas and get commissions. But I really think for this country to listen, to hear us, we need a shutdown. We need to shut everything has to do with creativity. Everything that has to do with the creative sector needs to shut down. For them to realize just the impact of the creative sector in this country. If you close radio, if you close television, just for one day, let's see that kind of an impact the creative sector bring to the lives of citizens in this country. And I think, we need also to stand together as a sector. And this has been something that has been used as an excuse by the minister himself to say, we segregated as an industry, and forgetting that, we segregated because everybody is trying to get hold of the piece of the pie, and that really has pushed us to be segregated. But no one has really, from the ministry itself, has ever said, except by saying that here's CIFSA for you, which is something that we don't recognize as well, because there is an agenda there. But no one has ever said to say or mention the fact that, in order for this sector to really function, let's look at the policy that's going to govern this country. We've been sitting with the white paper for far too long. And up to this day, it has not been really, given a day even in Parliament to be tabled as something that is of critical importance for this country. So where are we leading? We're leading to a place where there's and I sense there's an eruption now. Hence, during this COVID-19, we've had the emergence of organizations like STAND, like TADA, like SADA, and for the Arts, SOSIF. Those organizations, they came because there is a dire need for a sector to start looking at how are we going to correct the wrongs that we have allowed to happen for far too long. And I think we are in a critical place then to say, here we are, we're all speaking the same language. How do we come together then as those entities and start mapping a strategy? Because that's what we need now. It's a strategy of how we're going to deal with those who are not prepared to listen, who continue to ignore our pleas.
And Greg, in the beginning, we spoke about STEM. That STEM will be celebrating tonight, 1 year. I'm interested to know what really draw you. You understand, to say I really want to be part of this foundation. You understand what made you to say yes? I want to be part of it. And what are the things that you would love Stand and the industry to achieve generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for stand, I think that the word itself, stand, the abbreviation stand, it tells you itself that we need to stand. But also sustaining theater and dance, which is the meaning of stand, um, for me speaks to far more greater length than us having to fight for relief funding. How do we get ourselves to be a sustained sector? How do we get ourselves to speak about sustainability in the arts, in the creative sector, particularly for theater and dance? And that for me was like the founding ethos that I felt that foundation was so strong that I felt I want to be part of this movement. Also because it was saying this is about the artist doing it for themselves. How do we begin to stand as artists and start creating models that are going to feed us back? How are we going to make provision for creative programs to emerge within this foundation? For us to be able to give a lifeline back to the sector by ourselves and not wait for somebody to say, I am going to give you a lifeline, but I also can decide when I want to pull the plug.
Mm, mm. It's clear. And now let's talk about the work that VDT is doing. You understand that when you founded it in 1999 and still going strong, while you are having so many organizations and companies in South Africa that suddenly dies. Some of them are not really active. How have you managed with the team that you are working at Vuyani Dance, you understand, to make sure that the company is well run and machine we are connected, we've got so many companies that are closing down, shutting down. What is the secret of Vuyani Dance Theatre?
Yeah, I mean, Thami, there's no secret because we share very widely with other creatives in terms of the model that we use as Vuyani Dance Theatre. And our model is simple: we created a business model. We wanted to be function as a business, to understand that there's value in what we're doing, and to understand that that value needs to be sustained, and create strategies that are going to sustain that value, but also to understand what is the value chain in that. So, and the business model allows us, there are 5 pillars that we're talking about in the business model. One is we understand collaboration. We understand that there's value in collaboration. And number two, we understand that there is the international funding that can take us out of the normal funding cycle, where you can send an email, then you get an answer tomorrow to say, yes, I'm interested, no, I'm not interested. We developed a vigorous marketing department, of which so many independent companies don't have the marketing departments, and you don't have to create, like in the corporate sector, the marketing department, but you can find one person who is versed, who knows, the language, the marketing language, who can be on board, like we do. We have Sia Dokota, who comes from that space and loves the arts, and has been a contributing factor to the development of the business strategy of Vuyani Dance Theatre. So he goes out and we sell the product because we have a product. We've got something that we are creating, that we've been creating. We're training dancers, they become part of the product. We're making productions, they become the product. And that we sell to corporates, we sell to international players, we sell also to our local theaters. So that consolidated approach in terms of the business model allows us not only to be dependent on the normal funding models that the NGOs will usually do. Hence, we also created from Vuyani Dance Theatre another entity, which is Vuyani Dance Company. It's a PTY Ltd company. That is a company that will go out and say, this is how much we charge for this production. You know, and this is, we would like to offer you this at this price. So VDC is the wing of Vuyani that is a business. And it fits into the Vuyani Dance Theatre, where Vuyani Dance Theatre then does the training, does the outreach programs. So the money that's generated from VDC supports then the heart projects, the projects that we love doing. It supports the creation of those new projects, which then will go into VDC for VDC to sell in order for them to generate income that will then sustain the company. But we also have a trust. There's a Vuyani Dance Trust. And Vuyani Dance Trust allows us also to go in and create a patronage, to create people who can come in and say, we would like to be patrons of this organization. We love what you're doing. And they contribute to the trust because they also get, you know, the tax rebate from that, from the contribution. So there's something that we offer back to them. And then they can also then support the organization in ways that it can help them to you know, to also to get some value from their tax money, but also at the same time, it makes them feel good that I am contributing. My money is contributing to the development of dancers from that company.
Wow, that's really very impressive. I did not know that the Vuyani dance is having so many things, and I think we can all learn from it. And then now let's before we wrap up, I wanted to talk to you about the kind of work that you create. You know, when someone always asks me what makes a great production, is it a concept, is it direction, performance? But every time when I watch your work, you understand, it's full of heart and soul. You understand that there is element of spirituality. You feel something. You understand that, because you are not just watching and saying, wow, it's beautiful. It's not beautiful, you understand? There's something that shifts within you, you understand, when you watch your work. So tell me, in terms of your process of creating and the importance of spirituality, you understand, in your work, can you cover that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, in the kind of work that I produce, there's always that spiritual connection, and I think that spiritual connection starts from the dream. You know, when I'm in my home, in my bed, and dreaming about the project, I allow that dream to manifest in different ways. It's up until there's an eruption in that dream, where now I'm saying to myself, listen, you have to do this now. It's been in the system. Your ancestors, God, are speaking to you about this particular production. You need to make it happen. Up until that happens, then I will not touch the project. So I allow it to manifest, you know, in my body, in the physical being, so that by the time I communicate it to my collaborators or to whoever I'll be talking to, it comes armed with the spiritual connotations, that I'm not just talking from a psychological or philosophical point. I'm really speaking from the spiritual point, which has manifested over time for that particular project. So yes, I believe very strongly in that spiritual connection. And also, with my collaborators, there's a process that I take them through. That I will share the project in the first stage, and I will allow them to go away and allow the project or the seed to kind of grow in them, so that by the time they come back to me, they come back with like, oh, this is the idea that I have. Oh, this I'm thinking of this, because the seed has also manifested in them. And I'm hugely open to that kind of a process, where my collaborators, they come into the same space with me um, to share the vision, to come back into like, how do we expand your vision? How do we take it big? How do we make it bigger? We just planted the seed. We want to expand it.
Mm, mm. And now, Gregory, we always talk about mentorship program. Yeah, you understand? We want to have more about Gregory Maqoma and stuff in South Africa. You know, every time when you watch like a dance piece, yeah, you understand, with the upcoming, they just do like a physical theater, you understand, without really understanding the language, or ubukeli show, people just do roles and stuff, jumping up, you understand, but they're not spreading. What do you think in terms of status in the way say mentorship, especially in South Africa, to grow new, you understand, choreographers and stuff in South Africa? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly is it will be wrong of me to create the many Maqomas. I think what we need to do is to create people who have their own vision, who can then grow the sector and grow also the body of work, in which leads into the historical growth of our of the dance of dance history in our country. So so I want to make that clear first, and then secondly is that we need to create space. That mentorship is about sharing, is not about a pre-coding for someone to be the exact um, replicate or to replicate your ideas, your vision, or your aesthetics. For me, when I go into a mentorship, is to first and foremost to be led by the person I am mentoring. So my mentees will be the ones who are running the mentorship program, and I become just a catalyst. I become the instigator. I become the person who allows possibilities of for them to see some of the things they might not be seeing. I come in ready to say, what about this? What about that? Why are you doing that? What makes you to go that direction? Why not left? Why right? So I impose those kind of questions, which will allow for them to expand their thinking in whatever project that they are engaged with. And also it's about giving space, allow people to fail, and that's something that we have not done in this country so much. Or or institutions of learning, institute of higher learning. The biggest failures is that they producing people who are good in terms of putting concept on paper, but they've not been given the opportunity for them to say, let me allow the physical being of myself to be the embodiment of what is in my mind, what I'm thinking about, so that that can be tested and goes into trials, um, and allow failure to happen. And this is
Mm,
what, as Vuyani Dance Theatre, we have done for so long, to say, go ahead and fail, we will hold you. And then there's a second chance, there's a refinement, like I do with my productions. Sometimes the first premiere is not as good as it will be, after 10 years. So every work has to go into some kind of a refinement, for it to really go and mature. And we need to do that with mentorship. We need to allow young choreographers, young makers, an opportunity for them to fail. And I remember very well, I mean, the likes of Luyanda Sidia. I mean, he was giving the full company to say, make work on the company, make the work that you would like to do on the company. And I will come in really just to observe and ask the questions that I would ask. Why that? Why not that direction? So that's the kind of mentorship that we were willing to invest into, to allow that person to grow also the body of work, So that is not just a once-off. I mean, it was 5 years that he was with us, and you look at the incredible work that he's creating at the moment, and it's because he was given that platform for him to find purpose, to find a real a reason why he's making work.
Wow. Thank you very much for coming through to the show. You understand that before we close, I'll give you a closing remark. Like, for example, what we do in the show, we invite guests to come and talk about their work, and also hoping it will change, we understand, the state of the art, because I feel sometimes people are just lacking information. You understand, we're not creating platforms whereby we share our knowledge and experience, because that's how we learn. I've learned so much from people like Abopra, Mike Van Kraan, or Ishmael, you understand, when it comes to policy, because I always follow their work and you understand that they are writing. So I think one of the main aims of creating this show is to invite different practitioners, and we talk about these issues and we learn from each other. Any closing remarks from you before I let you go, so that you get ready for the anniversary?
Yeah, I mean, I would say as a closing remark is that, we all need to be curious. We need to be curious about our sector. We need to know, I mean, as you said, rightly said, that, you learn from the people like Mike and Braish. I learn too, and I continue to learn, and I allow myself to be curious in terms of learning. And I think, that's the only way we can really get ourselves in a position where we can work together, but also to understand why things are done that way, and to understand why is that person more successful than the other. And that's really, and on that note, talking about the curiosity, I will like to invite anyone in the creative sector, if they're not yet the subscribers of Stand Foundation, go on there and subscribe, because we are creating projects that are for the people, they are for the creative sector. There are lots of projects that are online that are there for people to look, and they can send an email to Mike at standfoundation.org.za if you want to be involved, if you want to contribute to Stand Foundation, if you want to partner in any way. There are projects, they are for the artist, by the artist. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Gregory, for coming to the show. This was really inspiring, and we learned a lot. Yeah. And thanks for responding to our call to invite you to a hectic schedule. But thank you very much. To everyone, we are out. Thank you for watching our show. Don't forget to subscribe so that we update you with all our upcoming shows. From me, Thami, Mbongo.